before we get into today's topic, just a quick update. Work on the next video has been very slow the past couple of weeks. It's been a bit of a disaster. I'm not going to turn these vlogs into just complaining, so my next goal is to change things around so that work doesn't ever stop on the main project ever, for any reason, ever. Any reason. You'll see how that goes if videos come out more consistently in the future. Anyway, today's topic, there's an interesting similarity between Mr Beast and FromSoft, and honestly probably a lot of other creators too. So not long ago, at the start of the Mr Beast drama, an internal document leaked. It was a guidebook for new team members to understand the philosophy of the company and Jimmy Beast's mindset. It's a very interesting read, especially for content creators of any kind, but for obvious reasons I'm not going to link it here. I'm sure some ne'er-do-wells have shared it online publicly somewhere, so you can just Google it. The document is one big info dump and it's fascinating. Honestly, you could probably do multiple videos just about it, but for today's purpose, we're going to focus on one part in particular. It's a section called Understand Culture, and I'll read a little bit now. What you consume on social media, when you watch YouTube, TV, the games you play, etc., are what I like to call your information diet. If you're a writer or director, you really need to monitor and perfect your information diet. If your diet is not correct, you won't have a good pulse on culture. Let's say there is a purple fruit in the middle of Australia that, when eaten, makes you 2 feet taller. If it truly did exist, you wouldn't have known that until just right now. But now that you know of it, you can draw on it for inspiration for every piece of content you write going forward. That's beautiful. It can sit in the back of your mind waiting for that one video where it is needed. You can't get inspired by things you don't know exist. Consume things on a daily basis that help you write better content. One core idea here, you need to consume things that help you make better content. I'm not going to tell you what to consume, other than if you're a content creator, you should be at least very familiar with the work of the top names in your niche, and at least a little familiar with the neighboring niches as well. The other idea here is that you can't get inspired by things you don't know exist. There's a real world example here that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. So the first Fear and Hunger game got very little attention until the second game came out. The interesting thing was most of the big videos, and especially the big streams, were about the first game. The first game came out in about 2018 and Terminator released about 4 years later, with mainstream popularity peaking about a year afterwards. So for almost 5 years, there was a game there that was guaranteed millions of free views on YouTube, just sitting there waiting to be unearthed. But nobody touched it because they didn't know it was there. Fear and Hunger was the purple fruit in the middle of Australia. So how many other games or movies, books, or anything else are there like that? Perfect to make content about, but that nobody knows exists. This obviously extends beyond meta content. Meta content being video essays about other media, but that's what I do, and I've learned not to speak beyond my knowledge if I can help it. Actually, speaking of, that does work in my own scripts. Take for example my No I'm Not a Human video. I saw the connection between the game and Revelations because of my knowledge of the Bible. If I didn't know anything about the Bible, I probably wouldn't have. In the Fear and Hunger games, there's a lot of connections to other media, and while I do try to be careful and just use in-game information to build theories, understanding the inspirations can act as a guide. With the sulfur god, there's links to solar deities in his statues, which helps build the case that he's linked to the sun god somehow. So you saw the title, what's this got to do with FromSoft? Well, as part of cultivating an ideal information diet for a lore video essayist, I, naturally, watch a lot of lore videos. VatiVidya, Smotown, Shadow That Axolotl, all the big ones. I got a good algo roll on 2 other smaller channels after a while, Tarnished Archeologist and Charred Thermos. They have less of a focus on item descriptions, and in Tarnished Archeologist's case, more of a focus on actual geology and architecture of FromSoft games, primarily but not exclusively Elden Ring. And in Charred Thermos' case, he focuses on the likely inspirations of Bloodborne, so the ideological digging. Both of these channels are, quite frankly, mind-blowing and worth binge-watching all of their content if you like FromSoft lore. I promise you they'll tell you many things you don't know about the games, and with very strong arguments behind their theories. Glazing aside, they highlight something about the games that I never really thought about. FromSoft are incredibly well researched. So most theory content about FromSoft games focuses just on, say, the item descriptions and enemy placements and that sort of things. And that's still valuable. Obviously FromSoft intend that to be part of the story, else they wouldn't do it. But guys like Tarnished Archeologist and Charred Thermos go about as deep as is possible. Elden Ring was inspired by lost civilizations, the Great Flood, burial rites from around the world, ancient geology, and more. Bloodborne, in reverse, was inspired by one specific time and place, late 1800s Edinburgh. But it's a thoroughly researched dive into the development of medicine and the different factions that rose and fell during that time. Charred Thermos even pinpointed what was likely the first inspiration for FromSoft to consider that setting. An article that suggested prominent doctors paid for pregnant women to be murdered so they could dissect them and their unborn babies. The article has since been argued against thoroughly, so it's probably not true, but it doesn't have to be to inspire a story. I've linked both of these channels and the article below, and I highly recommend you check them out. It's clear that FromSoft do an incredible amount of research for their games, but even then the initial idea has to be inspired by something. Some spark needs to set the tinder off. That spark, according to Mr Beast, you get from your information diet. So what do you want to create? And what is your information diet? As a lore video essayist, my information diet is primarily other video essays, but I also enjoy watching music videos, which I think helps me when I want to make punchy segments. I try to make the intros of my videos particularly interesting to hook viewers, which is obviously a pretty common YouTube tactic, but I'm more inspired by music videos than anything else, so I have fast visuals set to loud and prominent music. And we're going to insert the intro to No, I'm Not a Human here. So I read the Bible regularly, and while I try to be mindful that not everything is a reference to it, honestly, it does come up a lot. I play horror games, and sometimes, just for me, I play colony sims. One day I'll figure out how to make content about them, but at the moment they're just for me, and I like how brainless they are to play. I also read weird books with half a mind to make a video about them someday, but I really just like how weird they are secretly. Right now I'm reading a book called Borehole, a memoir about a man who drilled a hole in his head to become permanently high. Apparently it's one of the most disgusting books ever, but I haven't reached that part, so I'll tell you my opinion about it later. By chance, I end up watching a lot of English crime dramas, but I don't know how they fit into the scheme yet. Maybe figuring out lore is like solving a crime. I do want to set up a corkboard with strings at some point. But thinking about information diets has got me wondering if I could improve my own information diet somehow, if there's anything important missing. Is my own version of the article about the doctors, is that out there floating around there somewhere and I just haven't seen it yet? Right now, my current best work is objectively the No, I'm Not a Human video, and depending on when you see this video here, there's a good chance it's hit 1 million views, my first video to do so. To improve my YouTube videos, I think the most obvious piece to add to my information diet would be to watch more documentaries and especially other big video essayists. I already do watch some, you know, like Lemino and Nexpo. I'm there day one along with the rest of the internet, but I can always add more. I haven't caught up on a channel called Horses for a while, and his work is awesome. If you have any suggestions for good video essay channels, I would love to see them. In the future, I'd like to tell my own stories instead of just covering the work of others. I do think that video essays can show a different angle, and give greater appreciation for a work. So they're not valueless. And like, I don't think my work is bad and pointless or anything like that. I do think that there can be a lot of value in video essays. Like, you know, like I said, like showing a different side of it, a different interpretation of the work, I think can be pretty valuable. But also, like, I still get a lot of comments about how people have found Fear and Hunger through my work. They bought the game after they watched my videos on it. And honestly, that fills me with quite a bit of joy whenever I see messages like that, because there's this amazing work, just jaw-dropping work, Fear and Hunger, and some people have found that through me, and I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And so there's definitely a lot of value in video essays of themselves. So I'm not sitting here saying that what I've been doing so far is worthless and I want to throw it all away. But I'm a storyteller, and you can kind of see that in my progression of my videos. That's kind of what I did in the Logic video, the Machine God video. But I really leaned into that very heavily in my No, I'm Not a Human video, and you all reacted very well to that. Like, the whole thing is I've tried to gear it around being a story, you know. I have some ideas I'm poking at for my own stories, and I won't say what they are, so I won't spoil it. But looking at content like that to add to my information diet, looking at content around that would be pretty valuable. I am being very careful about it because my own creative work, my own generative work, my 2 videos that I've done that were definitely meta horror, and I made an analog horror in 7 days, right? Famously, analog horror in 7 days bombed. I'm not going to go over that yet again. But also my meta horror video did too. I think that was just because it got copyright struck and YouTube's not going to promote that. That was a new idea came out of that video. That video had new ideas that I hadn't seen anywhere else online before. So that, I consider that one a generative video as well. Yes, this information diet stuff is important for non-content creators too, I think. These days, everyone's worried about political propaganda, and that's just the same thing, you know? Same thing with like the Cocoa Melon babies, slop content, all that sort of stuff. It's the same thing as information diet. You know, most people just like slop, and it's okay, right? You know, food analogy warning. It's okay to have McDonald's every once in a while. If you're eating it every day for every meal, obviously that's where a lot of problems come in. But, you know, slop in of itself isn't inherently bad, but it's just when you consume too much of it and your information diet is just overrun with it, right? If you consider it the same way, and you consider, okay, so then what's fruit and vegetables in this analogy? Like, how can you hold the content you consume to a higher standard is the question you should be asking. So, you know, would your life change much if instead of watching, you know, the 3rd video about the Rizzler drama, Rizzler drama is crazy, guys. Whoa, watch out for this one. Instead of watching that, you know, watch something that's, you know, at least a bit more educational, you know, like a video essay. No, but like something serious, you know, a video essay about a historical event, or, you know, something scientific or something like that. Obviously, you're not going to turn into some super cultured genius just by watching YouTube videos when you're eating. Instead of watching slop content, you watch Kyrgyzstan videos while you're eating, right? You're not gonna transform into some super cultured person, but it builds up over time, and at the very least, you'll have something a little more interesting rattling around in your head. And I think that goes a long way. But I do know that the most important part of any information diet is More They Do videos. So whenever a More They Do video comes out, you need to drop everything. Even if you're like at dinner with your family, leave, and come and watch the latest More They Do video. And rewatch it too. Make sure to get that watch time up, guys. You know, if there's a part you like, just like skip back a little bit and then just rewatch it while you're watching it the first time. It's great. You should be doing that. So thank you all very much for watching. Remember that the best way to support the channel is through Patreon, where you can get your name in the credits, scripts, early previews, and even videos a week earlier than the public. Thank you again for watching. My name's Morday Doog, and remember, you're never alone in the dark.